Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. This is our 2 o'clock daily update on the Westchester coronavirus issue. And today I'm very proud to be here with colleagues both in government and in the private sector to announce an important initiative in the reopening of Westchester County's economy. I'm joined today by the Chairman of the Board of Legislators, the Honorable Ben Boykin, also County Legislator Katharine Parker, who has a second role why she's here today, Bridget Gibbons, who's our Director of Economic Development, and Louis Lanza, who's a prominent businessman here in Westchester County, known for outstanding restaurants and very philanthropic efforts across the county, particularly based in Peekskill, but not limited to Peekskill. We have other members of our executive team that are with us today, and Joan McDonald, notably our Director of Operations, and we'll be joined by Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive. Today we're announcing that we're opening our county's reopening task force. This task force is a group of Westchester residents that will be helping us guide this county through the 4 phases of reopening. We are already in phase 1, having done so this past Tuesday, almost a week ago, as the Governor Cuomo has laid out a series of metrics, and that this region of which Westchester is a part of, Dutchess, Rockland, Orange, Putnam, Ulster, and Sullivan counties, that we have now been able to reopen our manufacturing efforts, also reopening our construction efforts. We have curbside retail now allowed, agriculture, and a few other industries, but that we are now facing in the next week and in the weeks to follow, moving into the more extensive phases of economic reopening, phase 2, 3, and 4, as the governor's laid out. And as we interact with the state, different levels of business activity in areas that have been previously banned, regardless of phase, that will now come back into play. And so what we have here is a group of individuals that have served in a variety of different capacities who are going to serve in this particular capacity of helping us organize our efforts to reach out to the businesses of Westchester County and do everything we can to help them reopen in as fast a time as possible and help them to be as successful as possible. And the 2 chairs of this task force are with us today. Lou Lanza, who I've mentioned before as restaurateur, and Katharine Parker, who is a Westchester County legislator, but also for 23 years was the owner and operator of Parker's, a store on Purchase Street, the main shopping district in Rye, where both Katharine and I live. She's a former president of the Rye Chamber of Commerce, and she has great extensive experience, as does Lou, in small business in this county. And the large corporate entities of Westchester County are an important economic engine, but the small businesses of Westchester County are an important economic engine, and they come across lots of different fields of endeavors. On this committee, on this task force, we will have individuals who will serve as heading up working groups that focus on various critical areas: healthcare, labor, hospitality, restaurants, real estate, a host of different other areas where each individual industry has particular metrics and particular protocols that they have to practice in order to satisfactorily pass the state's scrutiny. There are guidance for each of these different industries, and in order for us to help them, we need to be able to become knowledgeable in what those requirements are, and then be able to outreach and help, and then to shape in areas where the state policy may be open to interpretation, or where they may leave the interpretation or the enforcement to the county government or the local governments, the ability to help shape that. And that task will fall to those who work professionally inside the administration, but will also fall from a policy standpoint to the members of this reopening task force. Chairman Boykin is here because we have to do things in making this happen that involve administrative, executive authority, but it may also involve legislative authority, where a particular action is something that the Board of Legislators, duly representing 17 districts across the county, will be involved in. And to have Legislator Parker as one of the 2 co-chairs is an essential link between the legislative function and the function that she, along with Lou Lanza, will prescribe. We're going to have our first meeting coming up this Thursday at 10 a.m. in the modern era via WebEx. So we'll all be up close and personal on the other side of a video. We obviously hope that their work will be very substantive and specific in a host of different areas. We are looking to reopen this economy step by step, but to do so without encouraging an increase, a spike in the infection realities here in Westchester County. And at the end of all of this, I'll give the most recent numbers updates for Westchester, which is part of a region. The region opens or closes as an entity. but the Westchester numbers continue to be good. We are now past 7 weeks from the highest point of contagion, and 11 weeks since the first case of COVID. The numbers continue to decrease, but we have to make sure as we open up the society, more people interact with each other as they interact in their business situation, and whether they're going to the dentist, whether they're going to a restaurant, they're going to a store, that we have the right protocols in place to make sure that we don't now have a spike in infection and potentially a spike in hospitalizations, and also in terms of fatalities. We've made progress over these weeks. We don't want to go backsliding on those progress. We also want to just highlight that our Urban County Consortium initiative through the county, the CDBG program, has involved a micro-enterprise grant assistance to businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. There's $1.2 million of CDBG funds that are going to be available for grants up to $10,000. There's a fact sheet on the county consortium that's being developed, should be available within the next 2 weeks or so. Our local development corporation here in Westchester County, the LDC, approved $75,000 to the Westchester Community Foundation for awards to not-for-profit organizations. They, like small businesses and governments, are all suffering an economic concern. Individuals are, so are nonprofits, and that $75,000 will help us in that particular initiative. There is a program for New York Forward that has been established by the state. We also know the federal programs, the SBA loan programs that are out there. Bridget Gibbons and her team, Deb Novick and Shari Asher and a host of other people have been working together and trying to develop those things. So we have some tools available. It's not a complete set of tools to work with, and we're going to have many businesses that, because they've been out for the length of time that they are going to teeter on insolvency. And so what we do to try to deal with that is going to be important. This task force will also be dealing with things that where the county has regulatory authority in the Department of Health. And the Department of Health has certain responsibilities, sanitarian responsibilities, the ability to oversee certain types of plans for certain types of businesses to make sure that they can operate and function. We want to make sure we protect the public health. We also want to make sure that we give the businesses an opportunity to flourish. And that's where both Lou's experience and Katharine's experience, along with all the other people around this group, will be instructive. I'm just going to mention the members by name who are going to be on this group, and there'll be additional people involved in the working group substructure of this, but we're fortunate to have Michael Romita and Amy Allen, who are with the Westchester County Association, who will be a part of this task force. Marcia Gordon and John Ravitz, leaders of the Business Council of Westchester, are involved in this. Ross Pepe and John Cooney from the Construction Industry Council, CIC. We have Peter Herrera, along with Louis, who are prominent restaurateurs in the restaurant industry. And I have to tell you, that is one of the things we get asked the most number of times. Whenever I am doing a Zoom call to one of the chambers of commerce, is most of the times the restaurant owners are on wanting to know, when do we get back up? What do we have to do? Can we go outside with our seating? What are the protocols? And so to have Louis particularly leading this group is important. Sean Mead, who is the general manager of Cambria Hotel down the street from us and is head of the Hotel Association, is going to be on this group. Janet Langson with the Arts and Entertainment Group, Arts Westchester, will help us with that. Carola Bracco and Jan Fisher from the world of not-for-profits. In the labor community, Tom Carey, who heads the AFL-CIO. Central Labor Body, Ed Doyle, who is a critical person in terms of the construction industry unions. From the healthcare industry, Susan Fox and Lindsay will be involved in this. Joe Simone and Marty Berger from real estate. We have Seamus Carey from Iona College. Ed Monroy from the Westchester Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We have a host of individuals with local chambers of commerce. Nick Campbell from the River Towns. Gail Marchica from Greater Ossining. Catherine White from New Rochelle. Dr. Jim Bostic, who's with the Nepperhan Center, and he represents young people also in that ethnic community in Yonkers. We have Rabbi Daniel Groper of Community Synagogue and Reverend Erwin Trollinger from Calvary Baptist Church, who will serve with us as well as members of the clergy. And, we reserve the right to add additional people if we think that's going to be helpful for the work of the committees. So I'd like to ask the two chairs who are just really starting their responsibilities today. We asked them, they said yes. So now they're going to give a speech with all that advance notice. But I'm first going to ask my good friend, restaurateur Louis Lanza, to share some of your thoughts. Louis, thank you for being part of this.
First of all, thank you very much for including me on this. It's an honor, and it is a big question because people want to go out to eat, and I have many restaurants in Westchester, and we closed down. We were probably the first ones to close down, so I understand the impact that it has. So I think we can do it safely. That's the main thing. So whatever guidelines we have, it's going to be up to the restaurateurs to manage their own staff, take care of the customers, but there's safe ways of doing this, and especially outdoor cafes. I mean, like I'm blessed that I have a lot of restaurants with outdoor cafes, so I think that's the first phase. People are in the parks, people are walking around, so when we're ready, we'll be ready. Sanitizing, food safety, my cooks monitoring temperatures, we can do whatever is told we can do. I think everybody's ahead of the curve in ordering up what they have to do and getting the thermometers and the right signs, and also, like I said, if you wait till the last minute, you might be in trouble, but now's the time. So I feel comfortable that once he gives us the go-ahead, we can safely reopen and serve the customers in a great way. But everybody wants to go out to eat. I think people are tired of cooking at home. I know I am. But thank you.
Thank you, Louis. And following the format laid out by Governor Cuomo, if we do in fact go from phase 1, which we're in now, to phase 2, that would happen a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, June 9th. We'd go into phase 2. That opens up retail, it opens up administrative offices, real estate, law, IT, accounting, major corporate headquarters, and so forth. Phase 3 would follow in 2 weeks, and that is when restaurants would open. And as Louis just said, I can't wait, as you can see from my waistline. The bottom line is that the restaurants in our downtown areas and in our various locations are really an engine to bring people into the heart of the community. And the mom and pop business stores do much better business when people are coming down having lunch and then going out and walking around in their areas and so forth. So next, I'd like to ask Katharine Parker to share a few thoughts. She is a county legislator, and of course she continues in her legislative responsibilities. Previously, Chairman Boykin appointed her to chair the relevant committee that involves economic development. And when I reached out to Ben to identify who we thought on the Board of Legislators could serve, because I wanted to make sure we had a legislator as a co-chair of this committee, he agreed. He and I both agreed that Katharine would be the right person. Now, Katharine's been involved in a major project, and by her taking this one on, she's made other sacrifices in her life, and we appreciate those sacrifices greatly, because this task is going to help us define how quickly we can open Westchester economically. So because of all of her expertise, Katharine, we're very glad that you're able to take this responsibility on.
Thank you so much, County Executive. First of all, thank you again for showing your leadership again in Westchester during this historic pandemic that we are experiencing. I'm very honored to have been asked to be co-chair, and I'm very honored to co-chair with Mr. Lanza. I certainly know him by reputation and also by the delicious cuisine of your establishments. And I'm a little sorry that we're not in the stage where we could have meetings in place with a group of people, because that would have been my first suggestion, to have it in one of Mr. Lanza's establishments. But as County Executive Latimer mentioned, my background was as a small business owner in Westchester County in one of our communities. I opened my business in 1996, and by the late 1990s, I had noticed that one of the things that we needed for our business community was to have a strong centralized voice. We were part of the community, and I see this reopening task force as a unified voice of all different sectors of business in Westchester County, with the rock stars of those sectors. I think that this is going to be a way to get Westchester back to where we were, and actually probably even better than before, because we do know that certainly some aspects of small business in this county have been struggling for many, many years. Maybe we could actually take a look at the issue and come up with some things that will give them really a sustainable path going forward. So I hope that that's something that we will be looking to as a group. I am excited to get started on Thursday. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Finally, to comment before we open it up to questions, we have the chairman of the Board of Legislators, Chairman Ben Boykin. He is serving now in his second term as chairman. He's been county legislator representing White Plains, Scarsdale, and a section of Harrison for a number of years. He previously served on the White Plains Common Council. He was also a member of the White Plains School Board, and he has the unique distinction of having chaired all three of those bodies, chair his local school board, his local common council, and now the Board of Legislators. So Ben, who has a business background, a finance background, and advanced degrees, is certainly a student of business And the involvement of the Board of Legislators as he leads it, as Katharine liaises for us, is very critical to the decisions ahead. So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer, and to the co-chairs of Open Westchester. Congratulations to you. I know that you will do an outstanding job. To my colleague, thank you, Legislator Parker, for stepping up to do this. She's the ideal person because she heads up the committee of our board, planning, economic development, and energy. And as we were setting up those organizations at the first of the year, I spoke to Katharine and she agreed to serve and chair that committee. Who knew that it would be so of an important committee in helping Westchester get back to a new normal? Because this is different. And when we look around the world and we look at businesses, we know all the large businesses of the world. But economics really takes place with those small business owners. They may be one person, they may be two people, they may be 10 people. But that's where job growth and economic development really takes place. So we've got two outstanding individuals, with Katharine having been a small business owner in Westchester for 23 years, Mr. Lanza running numerous restaurants. I've been to them, as you can tell, and we look forward to get back to those restaurants. This is going to be a very important challenge because we're at a place we've never been before. We're on pause, we closed the economy down, and now we've got to reopen it in a more vibrant and in a more smarter way so that the businesses can survive, grow, and move to the next level. That's not going to be easy because so many businesses, as you know, they teeter. They're always on the brink. But by working together with these two co-leaders and others, figure out how everyone can survive. So we really look forward to this task force. And it's not going to be a task force in name only. When the county executive I spoke, he says, this is going to be a working group to work with the businesses, with the nonprofits and others in this county to continue to move Westchester forward. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to thank publicly the hard work that Bridget Gibbons has put in as Director of Economic Development. She has been the innovator that identified for us the creation of Element 46, an incubator program, the likes of which did not exist in the county previously. On her team includes Shari Asher, who has been serving as a liaison to Chamber of Commerce groups all across Westchester County. That is something that did not happen before. Our relationship with the local business communities that Katharine alluded to has been exemplary, and also the work with the IDA and the LDC is part of her responsibilities. So you get some more work, Bridget. And in her
Thank you to take it on. Thank you very much.
In her past experience, she has both been a small business owner and also worked for large corporations. So she's got the full range of things. All of these things fall under the operational wing of Joan McDonald, and I want to publicly thank her, as I do most members of my team. There is no way that the individual who sits at the top of the pyramid can take credit for all the things that happen underneath it. I watch that sometimes and marvel when people do. But Joan has had a career in a variety of different governmental agencies where she's been an exemplary manager. And I must say, as a woman in certain areas that were fairly male-dominated, she had tremendous accomplishment, and she fought through areas of construction and transportation, which really showed her skill set, her ability to not just hold her own, but to lead people and to accomplish missions. She was Economic Development Director for Connecticut as a commissioner under the Jody Rell administration, and she served as Commissioner of DOT Transportation here in New York State. So to be Director of Operations of Westchester County, you know, it seems like small potatoes in comparison. We've given her share of headaches, but all of these things fall under her guidance, and she's been level and steady and solid. And I want to publicly thank you, Joan, for your hard work, and the fact that all of these things fall ultimately under your scrutiny gives me a sense of confidence that this will be, in fact, working and pushed to an end result that's important. I'll just finish my general comments. We'll go to questions. I remember the day I got my first car. It was $200, and that's probably about what the car was worth. It looked like a car that you bought for $200. And when I brought it home, my mother was horrified, and my father basically had no reaction. He sort of, congratulations, you got a car. And I started talking about it and what had to be done on it. And he just kind of looked at me over his glasses, sitting on the edge of the couch. He looked at me and says, well, you wanted it? I said, yeah, Dad. He says, you got it. It was the end of the advice from Dad. You got it? You want to be county executive? You got it. You got your pandemic, economic crisis, social unrest issues that must be dealt with, social justice issues. You got it. But we get through this as a society, as a group of people. We don't get through it because one person alone does it. And it isn't even the government alone. The cooperation between the executive branch and the legislative branch is a part of it. The cooperation between the private business community and the not-for-profit community and the clergy and the government, finding a way to work hand in hand. We go to the state government as our partner and our friend to help us accomplish these things. We do not get through now what are three significant issues that we face by doing it alone. And so that's why I'm particularly glad today that Louis has agreed, so many other business people have agreed, Katharine has agreed to take on additional responsibility. This is how it works in a democracy. When people work together, we have our differences philosophically, we have moments where we don't always agree, but that's not as important as the fact that we see a challenge. We have to open the society economically. We have to do it in a way that does not add to the contagion and the danger that people may have from this virus, second wave, whatever's coming next. And we have to do it in a cooperative, inclusive way. And by God, we will do that. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions. You're welcome to direct them to myself or to anybody else who's here. And Jonathan Gordon, News 12, you're here in person. Thank you for coming. You get the first question, or the first few questions, if you like.
One for you. Based on the numbers you're seeing, you've been open now phase one for nearly a week. Based on the numbers you're getting from the state, is it your expectation, do you believe, that we'll be on track to get to phase two by next Tuesday?
I do. We are now Monday, 6 days from when we came into phase one. The numbers that I'm going to report in a second show that our active cases are down to 1,229. And I say this every time, the active cases are the total number of positives less the total number of positives from 2 weeks ago because of the incubation period. At 1,229, that is the lowest number we've had of active cases since the contagion flew up the front end of the bell curve back in the first couple of weeks of March. And just a few weeks ago, we were at 4,000, 8,000. It's come down steadily, so that's a good sign. Our hospitalization numbers now are in the 200 range, mid-200 range. At one point it's 1,200. So the answer is yes. I think we're heading in the right direction. Now, there's always a fear that whatever action you take will increase the spread. You may remember a few weeks ago when we opened up Bicycle Sunday, there were some people who said, oh my God, don't do that. You're going to increase the spread. And we said, no, we think we can manage it. We don't think that intrinsically having people bicycle, with most of them wearing masks and most of them practicing social distancing, that it would increase the spread. Turns out so far we're right. We've gone through 4 weeks of that experience, four dates spread out over 5 weeks, and we've still seen the decrease go down. And we did the same thing with other recreational facilities that we've opened. So we're not cocky about this. No one can be sure what this virus can do next. So there's a certain degree of humbleness here, but the trend lines show a continuing management of it. And so we think we can do that. And Louis pointed it out, obviously, in the restaurant business, and I'm sure Katharine can talk. I was in her store many times when she had it. There's certain things you do. You put up something to protect the worker at the point of sale, so that the worker and the person buying the product have a certain protection. The fact that you can sanitize your hands or put gloves on them, have the mask on. Where you stand as you're queuing up, waiting to go to check out something. In a restaurant, capacity, where you set the tables. If you have an outside area, and some of the communities are looking now at closing down streets temporarily to create more outdoor dining. And the more outdoor dining you have, you now change the complete envelope, and you may be able to come close to the same number of tables, but you're not just using the inside seating, you're now able to go to the outside seating. And then all those protocols, how a waiter is going to, function in his or her job and so forth. So I think we can do this opening and we can do it effectively and well. We're also watching what's going on in upstate. We have 7 regions, I believe, north of us and west of us who are about a week ahead of us. They have continued to see the drop in their regions as they now this very week go into phase 2. So I have every reason to think that we're going to make phase 2, which would be the next set of, and phase 2 has within it a greater openness of the society, a greater potential for infection spread. But I suspect we'll do that well, and that will lead us to then phase 3 and hopefully all the way through.
Just a quick follow-up and then a quick question for Mr. Lanza. But
Yep.
for you quickly, you talk about the opening up streets or closing streets to allow outdoor seating. Is there any potential idea on the table that this task force may look at for including that option for non-restaurant industries? So the possibility of putting salon chairs out, or nail salons, something that traditionally would be indoors but could move it outdoors.
Right. I think everything's on the table. I would hope that Katharine and Louis and the team would look at every possible suggestion they have, look at the realities of it. Some other industries besides, or businesses besides restaurants may lend itself to that, some may not, but they can have that robust discussion. And of course, whatever we do, we have to do it within the context of the state. The governor's executive orders govern all of this. But if his orders are silent in some area and the county then has discretion, then what this committee recommends, we want to lean on the side of, as long as we're protecting the health care, we want to lean on the side of opening up the society for the economic needs that we have. So hopefully they'll come up with these creative ideas, and I'm sure when they have the first couple of meetings, they'll open it up to the press. And maybe not the first meeting when they first organize, that could be a little boring, but once we get beyond that, I think it'd probably be an interesting dialogue, and you'd be welcome to do it. Now your next question is to Mr. Lanza. Okay.
Quickly, as a business owner yourself, how you're on the task force, but let's say hypothetically you weren't. How would a task force like this help you navigate yourself, particularly when you get to phase 3?
It's going to help by giving us the guidelines, the exact guidelines. So restaurateurs are entrepreneurs for the most part, and they're creative. So like you said, if New York State doesn't govern exactly how we can do it, then we can come up with very creative ways to serve the people. And I'm already talking, I talked to my neighbors next door and said, can I use your body shop? Can I put tables in front of your body shop on Saturdays and Sundays? By all means. So you have to be creative. If a whole block is closed down, I'm sure that the local municipality will say, yeah, go ahead, put tables along these retail spaces and bring up, it's going to be a way. As long as we can do it creatively, I think Westchester can be leading edge because we have some great, smart minds in Westchester. So I think it's a win-win.
Do we have, Katharine, any questions from our friends in the press that might be remote?
We have questions on other topics.
Okay, then we'll take those after we finish this. And no other topic questions on this one? No one else that has it. So I want to thank our colleagues here. Again, Chairman Ben Boykin, head of the Board of Legislators, the two heads of our committees, both Lou and Katharine. We thank you for agreeing to take on this additional set of headaches, but we think your contribution is going to be significant, and you'll be able to look back with a real sense of pride of how you've been able to help the industry. And of course, Bridget Gibbons, who's going to have more than her share of work as part of all of this too. So let me thank you all again, and relieve you of your burden to have to stand up here under the hot lights. Thank you. Before we go to general questions on any other topic, let me just give today's numbers. Today, the New York State Tracker on the first day of June indicated that 33,552 Westchester residents have tested positive for COVID. That is a year-to-date number. For practical terms, of March 1st to June 1st is the year-to-date, so that's a 3-month number, 33,552. That number is increasing by very small numbers the last week to 10 days. 2 weeks ago, the number of positive cases we had was 32,323. So the difference between those two numbers leave us with 1,229 active cases. That is a huge drop. As I said before, at one point we had as many as 12,000 active cases. To have 1,229 active cases is a very workable number. I do not have a hospitalization number for today. The most recent number I had showed that we were in the vicinity of about 250 people hospitalized. When we get an updated number, if it's today or if it's tomorrow, we'll certainly share that with the press for their purposes. And if we haven't already, we will send out the map that shows the number of cases, active cases, and total positive cases by jurisdiction on the map, which we send out each day. I want to thank Susan Spear, who's one of our leaders in the operations team here, for doing this every day. This is, and she does this 7 days a week, so I just imagine on weekend days when the rest of us are, at the Playland or Croton Point Park Beach, she's still looking at the numbers and sending them out to our local partners. So we appreciate that, and that will give the breakdown, which you'll have as well. We have experienced 1,374 deaths due to COVID-19. That is 3 more deaths than we had the night before, And we have been now almost consistently in single-digit overnight fatalities. Every fatality is a tragedy. There is nothing to be happy about in the death of 3 people. But when we go back those 7 weeks and we saw that one night we lost 72 people, another night we lost 50 people, 45 people, to have those numbers drop down this dramatically is not only a trigger to opening the society, it gives us hope that we're doing the right thing. Because the only reason why we're going through all of this is because of the fatality factor of this disease. If this was a disease where whoever got sick was sure to recover, and it was just a question of how much hospitalization we had, but deaths were non-existent, then we would have reacted completely differently to this. But we've lost 13, almost 1,400 people to coronavirus. And I must comment, editorialize, I hear some people now trying to rewrite the numbers, trying to come up with a way to interpret the numbers as not being that high. And I look at that as trying to rearrange deck chairs, on the Titanic. If something is a problem, and if something is a tragedy, you don't try to redefine it to make it less of a tragedy. People have died, and they died because of this disease. That is a fact, and dealing with that fact is why we wear masks and wash our hands and sanitize them and so forth. That is what practical people do. We don't try to redefine the problem by saying, oh, well, it's really not that bad. It's no worse than the flu. It's a lot worse than the flu. Now, people can say whatever they want. It's a free country, but individuals have to discern what is true and what is not. We have lost a lot of good folks. And I must tell you, I was at an event yesterday in Westchester. We were giving out some masks at a senior center. We were talking about some of the people we know in the village of Westchester that have died in the last 3 months to COVID. And there were quite a few of them. And we reminisced about them as I stood with these folks. So this is not, this is not an imaginary thing. This is a real thing. 1,374. The other statistic to give you today is our testing total has gone up to 161,908 individuals. Now, there's some duplication in there. Some people that may have had more than one COVID test. I can't tell you what a percentage of the duplication would be, but it's so close to being one test per person that we will say if it's 161, almost 162,000 test people, that's 16.2% of Westchester's population. We're approaching, and we will reach, 1 out of every 5 Westchester residents having been tested for COVID. And when you go back and look at what public health professionals talked about, how do you fight this without a vaccine and without an antiviral? What they tell you is testing. You've got to test to find out how far the disease has infected. And the only way you find that out is by administering those tests. And now we have testing facilities all across the county. I just read, some of the churches now are going to be opening them up. And so we think that's a universally good thing. The test is not fun and games. The swabs, go pretty far up there to get the sample necessary to know whether you are or are not infected with COVID. And as we're looking at the total number of people that have contracted the disease, we've tested 162,000 people. 33,000 are positive. That tells you that in the vicinity of 130,000 people tested negative. So that is a good sign. That's almost a 3-to-1 ratio between those that test negative versus those that test positive. And then, of course, 1,374 deaths out of 33,000 people is around a 4% number. Now, 4% is a lot of people, but as a percentage of the whole, to get that fatality rate to that number, not 10% or 8%, where you'd have double the number of deaths or 2.5 times the number of deaths, that is what you try to accomplish in public health circles. So those are the numbers that we have for today. Tomorrow's numbers, and each day we'll report on. If there's any questions that anyone has from the press outside of the ones we're going to ask in a second, then we're happy to try to provide that for you. We will be announcing later this week some other information and issues relating to the other major issues that we face. We have some decisions to make on our recreation facilities, and we will make some announcements about what's going to happen in the long term with Playland and some of our parks or pools we're looking at, but there's no reason to get ahead of ourselves right now. We'll have that information for you when we're ready to give you an announcement, and we look forward to the summer season that's at hand and to try to provide healthy recreation that still, controls the spread. So with that, Katharine, I'll take any other questions on any other topic, as well as in room, any questions on any other topic.
Okay, so the first question comes from Martin Wilbur. He says, regarding your announcement about the working group to review policies and procedures you made earlier today, would any recommendations that come out of that extend to local police departments in the county or just the county police force?
Well, 2 things would apply. The first thing is the recommendations that would come out of that working group are targeted to look at the way we train those that go through our police academy. The larger portion of people are the first-time recruits, and then secondarily, we have in-service training for existing police officers all throughout the county. So if there's a change in either procedure or policy or the way a particular thing is taught, then it would have impact on all of the police departments insofar as there's in-service training or insofar as they have new members that are coming into that police department that would go through this changed and revised training. We have direct policy control, obviously, over the county police force, 300 plus sworn officers. We do provide the local policing in the village of town of Mount Kisco, and we also have some backup services we provide in the town of Cortland and the village of Tuckahoe. And then, of course, we police the parkways, and we also police county-owned facilities. And, of course, a number of people will interact with those county facilities, so it's a legitimate policing authority at Kensico, at Playland, and so forth. But we do not necessarily have the authority to make a policy that would then apply to the local police departments. Generally speaking, when the county has certain protocols, the departments take a look at it, and they make a decision, and depending on the size, the scope of the policy, they oftentimes adopt it, and we will share that with all the local governments if there's a specific operational thing that we choose to do. But we think the educational function of the county is where we really have the greatest possibility. And this is not to say that what we're doing now is wrong and bad. This is to say, how do we look at what are we doing now and how can we make it better? Is there a best practice someplace? This is the time to do that now. This is the time to reinforce it. And for those who've been through the process of law enforcement, there's an elaborate set of things that are already in place. We just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to try to deal with this justice issue and to do it promptly and not, delay it unnecessarily.
Next three questions come from Jay Sears. The first one, Playland Park, when will there be a decision on the season?
We're expecting by the end of the week, I think. Let me just, and for Jay, who writes myride.com, here are the component pieces that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the beach and determining when are we going to open it up for weekday usage. Right now it's open for the weekends. Traditionally we open it up late June, every day of the week, 6 days of the week, which is not open on Mondays. We were in contact with the school superintendents, which are still having classes of in-home education. So while we could, in theory, open up the beach every day right now because kids are out of school, they're still supposed to be going through an educational experience, and so we don't want to undercut that. So we have to make a decision and announce when will we start the day-to-day the day-to-day beach experience at Playland. The second decision we have to make at Playland is the Playland Pool. The Playland Pool is scheduled to undergo a major reconstruction. This has been in the works before my administration began. It's part of the overall projects at Playland. It's said that it will keep the pool out of commission for quite a while. We can make the decision to start that sooner rather than later, hopefully to have it ready for the beginning of the 2021 season. And keep in mind that the pool's open in late June. So even though Playland itself would open next year in mid-May, if that's when we choose to open it, there's still a month and a half until the pool would open. So we'd give ourselves functionally a full year to do the construction project on the pool. So that's the second issue we have to deal with. And then the third issue is the park itself. We have already said that it will not open any sooner than July 20th. We are already under an order by the governor which prohibits opening any amusements park. So if I decided tomorrow, let's open it tomorrow, can't do it. Governor's authority is over the top. But we have to decide if we would open it if we have the opportunity, because if we did decide to do that, we'd have to start putting wheels in motion right now. And if we don't do it, there's a host of issues involved. And certainly there's some capital projects that we could advance. But we've talked about if we're not going to have Playland Park parking lot used for people coming in to go to the park, can we establish a couple of drive-in movies as an alternate recreation experience on a couple of nights? We already have a couple of them planned at Kensico. Now can we do a couple at Playland? That might be an option if we decide to close Playland from an operating standpoint. We also have to look at the fireworks situation. We've already said no fireworks there for the 4th of July and for, I guess, the first two Fridays that lead up to that July 20th date, which is a date we picked to be coincidental with what we're doing at Kensico, so we're on the same time frame. And we need to make an announcement about whether or not we're going to have any firework display down there at all. The little kid in me wants to have something, Labor Day weekend, If that happens, we'll see. But it all depends on the spread of the contagion. So all of those are the things that go into the decisions at Playland. And, Joan, we talked about this earlier today with our executive team, and I think we're pretty close to making some of these decisions. But it's not just you decide to do it or not. You have to check a bunch of things. As I mentioned, in terms of opening the pool, we had to talk to the school superintendents. We had that conversation, and that was preparatory to know what we want to do just on that one issue. We have other factors to look at as well.
The next question is, how were the crowds this weekend at Playland Beach?
I don't have the exact number. It was a better crowd this weekend than last weekend. The first weekend we opened, it was not a great beach weekend. Now, I'll refer to my good friend Chad Gallick in the room, who's a beach goer. He knows pretty much what is a good beach weekend and what isn't. But it was, we lost, on Memorial Day weekend, we lost Saturday to pouring rain. Friday was, it's a Friday, not a weekend day. And then Sunday and Monday were okay, but a little cool. Yet this weekend, Sunday was a beautiful day, but not necessarily a great beach day because it was cool and breezy, and you didn't get as many people that would go. But we had good numbers over the weekend. It was manageable numbers. We were able to do the number of people that came. We did not have an overflow. We have not had a problem being, rushed by out-of-county residents. So to that extent, we're good. We're going to continue to open it. And at some point in time, when we do open it on the broader basis, it will be 6 days a week when we do open it. And that will take, management of a certain level. We hope by then New York City would have resolved their issues with their beaches. We don't necessarily want to prohibit out-of-county usage of the beach, but we can't keep it open and run the risk of having the much greater population of New York City dominate our two beaches, which are much smaller. And so once New York City opens their beaches, that will give us some relief, and we can do our thing more broadly.
And his last question is, what is the status of nursing home testing?
I'm not exactly sure of that. I'm going to have to check on it for Jay and for anybody else that's interested in it. I do know that the state opened the door for our county health department to be involved in that. I do know there was a requirement that there be double testing. So let me get back to Jay, or we'll have you, Katharine, get back to Jay with some additional information. I guess we'll go through our operations team and get an answer on it for you so we know exactly what the status is. We are not tracking statistics from the nursing homes in the same way that we do other things, because the nursing homes report directly to the state. They've given us some involvement with them, but the line of authority at the nursing home level is directly to the state, not through the county to the state. So we don't necessarily know directly, even if we're doing certain functions there.
That was the last question.
Okay, very good. Jonathan, any questions you'd like to ask on any other topic? Okay, very good. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. I believe Ken Jenkins is going to be doing our 11 o'clock Facebook Live interview, our Deputy County Executive, and that'll be followed by our 2 o'clock update. And I think Chairman Boykin is going to be involved tomorrow where we go over to White Plains City Hall and give out some masks to the folk in White Plains. So with that, have a good day.